Talk about girls and my fetishes.
He would not walk into a room unless he was supposed to be there for a purpose. He ain't just gonna walk into a room and be standing around. He's there because he's needed for something. He was constantly moving. I mean, you know, we was recording all night. He'd be on the movie set. He'd come back. It wasn't like, oh, I'm taking 2 days off and getting a hotel room, you know, and relaxing. Hell no. Which maybe had to do with the fact that he always kept saying, I'm gonna be dead. They're coming to get me. They're coming to get me. So I think he wanted to get as much done as he could. I remember one time, I was telling you earlier, where he would like, he'd want to turn the air conditioning off and make it hot like person. He'd jump around and shit. And just totally get into it.
Pac, like the flow, you necessarily didn't have to have the perfect part, but if it flowed right, you were cool, you know? And they moved on, so in retrospect, you could get 2 or 3 songs done a day. I mean, done, ready to go to radio.
But what was interesting was he would never, most people would come in the studio, hey, let me hear my last 8 songs I did. He never even wanted to hear the shit back. He would never, like, ever request, hey, let me hear that song. And he'd never say nothing like, hey, you know, that mix ain't right or that shit. He didn't give a crap about that. All he cared about, like he said to me once, just put my vocals real loud and turn the drums up, and I don't give a shit about anything else.
On that last night working in the studio, Pac was relaxed and having fun, but engineer Scott couldn't believe how productive he was.
So then the food and everything comes in, everyone's eating, everyone's having a good time, drinking. Next song's done. All right, I already got lyrics for it, let's go. Boom, runs in, does another lyrics on this other song.
One thing I thought was interesting, sometimes he'd write his lyrics down. When we leave, I'd look at the lyrics. There was never a misspelled word, and there was never something crossed out like, you know, keep rewriting. It was just all the words spelled correctly.
The Outlaws start running in. Boom, 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 boom. Everyone starts going and doing their thing. All right, that's 2 songs. Let's do another one. Get another one, Damon, come on. So next you know, Damon's off in the corner doing another song. About another hour later, Pac runs in again. Let me do another verse. Da 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 da. Starts writing out, gets on the mic and starts spitting again. So just that whole night was just memorable because of the way how professional he was.
But I tell you, the first time I worked with Tupac, it was a trip because I didn't know his work habits, right? And so usually in rap, like after the guys do the beat, you put the tape on cycle and everybody smokes pot and gets on the phone, pages their chicks and all that shit, and takes 3 or 4 hours to write their lyrics. So when we finished the first track, I was like, great, I can take a break. Then he comes back in, you better get in there, Tupac's mad. So I walk in, Tupac looks at me and throws his book at me with his lyrics, and he's like, you motherfucker, if you ever leave this studio again, I'm gonna kick your fucking ass, right? And I'm like, dang, I was gonna smart off. Thank God I didn't, because he probably would have jacked me.
It wasn't a peace, love, and happiness vibe. It was more of get the job done, you get it right, you're concentrating. It's like pro sports, you're not, you know what I mean?
The next day he comes up with Timothy Roth, the actor. They were working on that movie Gridlocked, right? So Tupac, totally different mode. He's got his suit on, he's playing this little, he's with all these white people and he's playing, he's about as white as you could possibly get, right? And I'm still kind of pissed from the night before, but he's got this grin on his face. And then he says to me, "Bet you're glad this ain't a Tupac session, aren't you?" I said, "No, it's whack, man. I want to make a record." And he said, "From now on, you're my engineer." I said, "Okay, let's do it."
I was one of the engineers on his Machiavelli record. We got to work on 3 songs, songs 8, 9, 10. White Man's World, Me and My Girlfriend, and Crazy.
And then he walked in one day, and he said, "I just got an order from Suge to do a diss album." So now he was in his diss mode. I'm going to diss everybody on the East Coast. So we were doing that for a while, but that kind of got old, you know, because like, how many times you want to listen to somebody getting dissed?
I'm gonna give the people what they want. And what they want is the real stuff that they can feel.
So then the album, which he said he had to have done in 3 weeks from an order from Suge, started to change directions from the diss stuff to the more political and social stuff.
There's sort of a flowering of his career during the mid-90s at the same time that hip-hop is kind of flowering as well within the mainstream and going global as well. And I think at the time that he died, he was becoming a really, really interesting character. I mean, the Machiavelli album, on the one hand, is real deep and dark, and on the other hand, he had real pop-type stuff as well that are coming out on Death Row.
We're pulling off, like, the Hit 'Em Up song where he's dissing Biggie, which is cool because that became a video and a single, right? So that was cool, so we got out of that one. And then we took the Nas song off Their Friends, which I actually told him one night after I drank about 4 Hennessy's, I said, "You actually sound stupid dissing Nas for 3.5 minutes." He looked at me like I was crazy, right? I said, "Take it off the album." The 4 Hennessy's kind of helped on that one. So he said, all right, take it off. We'll do some more songs tomorrow. He left the studio, comes back in. He says, put that song back on the album. I said, sure, no problem.
Boy, he had a lot to say, man. He was definitely a poet and sort of a, what would they call it, a seer? Almost like a shamanic seer, a visionary.
Swear to God, he walked in 5 minutes later, he goes, you're right, man, take that shit off. We're changing the whole album, man. It's gonna be my Machiavelli album, which I didn't even know who Machiavelli was. And I was like, okay. And we're sitting there with the album, not even really mixed. And next thing you know, we get a phone call to head in to master it. And stuff isn't even mixed, we just have the DAT tapes from the nights of the sessions. And next thing I know, the album disappears and it comes out, so like those aren't even really mixes, those are like from the session.
Whether properly finished or not, Machiavelli has sold more than 5 million copies. The album before Machiavelli was All Eyes on Me, Pac's second release for Death Row and the first ever double album by a rapper.